Have you ever tried preaching to people who have nothing on their table? Parents who have no jobs, families who have no homes, orphans who have lost family members to crimes and injustice, youth who feels they have no future. How about to people who don't care, don't listen, or don't even go to church anymore? People who say, I believe in God, but not in religion. Or the church has nothing to say to my life anymore. People who have lost their sense of sin and so have lost the grace of redemption. That's exactly the kind of crowd Saint Alphonsus chose to preach to. He didn't run away from the mess of the world or from its scandals or confusion. He didn't hide behind books or titles. Instead, he moved closer to the wounded, to the poor and abandoned, to the confused, to those left behind by both society and the church. He knew what we often forget. The people farthest from the church are often the ones most hungry for mercy and love. And so today, my dear brothers and sisters, as we celebrate his feast, it is good to ask, how do we rekindle in us the missionary heart of Christ like Alphonsus? In a world that is confused, wounded, and morally adrift, what was in the mind and heart of Alphonsus when he decided to leave the world and follow Jesus? These are questions that we must journey with, especially today as we honor our dear father and founder, Saint Alphonsus Maria de Liguori. You know, as a Redemptorist, I have often imagined reading the mind of Saint Alphonsus. Sinusubukan kong basahin ang kanyang isip, especially in moments when I feel like I am drifting away or walking away from the path he took when he founded the congregation. And what brings me back on track is the thought that I can always learn from him and not just simply follow him. It is easy to follow him, but to learn and imitate him is another thing. So today, my dear friends, let me share to you insights that I learned or I am learning from the life of Saint Alphonsus. Hopefully, these insights can also reignite the fire in our hearts as we strive to live out our missionary life as Christians. 3 insights. And the readings we have heard today affirm these thoughts. Seeing, speaking, staying. Seeing with the eyes of compassion, speaking the words of redemption, and staying with the most abandoned. Seeing, speaking, staying. We can understand what was in the mind and heart of Alphonsus through these three simple human gestures. At least that's what I told myself. First, seeing with the eyes of compassion. In the Gospel, Matthew narrated that when Jesus saw the crowds, he was moved with pity for them because they were troubled and abandoned, harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. This is actually a template of Jesus that was adopted by all great missionary saints, including Alphonsus. Before Jesus preached, he saw. Before he sent the 12, he was moved with compassion with what he saw. My dear brothers and sisters, mission begins not with strategy, but with sympathy. Saint Alphonsus looked at the people of God with intentionality. The poor, the sinner, the outcast, the wounded, the hardened and empty souls. And he saw the wounded child of God inside each of them. A real Christian sees the other. In our world today, the call remains to be so. Look at the poor. See the suffering eye to eye. The overworked mother or father raising her or his children alone. The young people lost in digital addiction and societal anxiety. The LGBTQ plus who feel rejected. The migrants, the sinners, the doubter, the hopeless, the angry. Look at them with compassion. Mga kapatid, ang pagtingin o ang pagtitig ang simula ng pag-ibig. Hindi mo maaaring mahalin ang hindi mo kayang titigan. And that is why Saint Alphonsus loved the poor so much, because he can look at them eye to eye. To rekindle our missionary heart, we must let our eyes be opened so that our hearts can be moved. Alphonsus did what he did because he saw the world not just with the eyes of faith, but with the eyes of compassion. Seeing with the eyes of compassion. Second, speaking the words of redemption. The prophet Isaiah in the first reading exclaims with conviction, "He has anointed me to bring good news to the poor, to bind up the broken-hearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives. Preach the good news to the most abandoned, because with him is plentiful redemption." This is the mandate. This is the constant in changing societal contexts. Saint Alphonsus was a master preacher, not because he used lofty words or because he's familiar with theologies, but because he spoke with mercy, with compassion, and with conviction. His moral theology was not to condemn, but to lift. He believed in a God who bends down to help us stand again. Yes, in the pulpit, he roars like a lion. But in the confessional, or when he's talking to people, he is as gentle as a lamb. He preached the words of redemption. Mga kapatid, ang salita ng Diyos, ang daluyan ng kaligtasan at pag-ibig ni Jesus. Today's world is full with opinions, loud with opinions, but hungry for truth spoken in love. The world is loud with opinions, but hungry for truth. We are called to speak Christ, not with judgment, but with hope. Not with alibis, but with truth. Yes, let us preach in churches, but we must also preach in the marketplaces, in coffee shops, in classrooms, in the government institutions, in online platforms, in the streets. And we must preach through our witness of life. Every Christian can become a missionary of redemption by the words we say, by the way we say them, and by the life we live them out. Preaching by the words we say, by the way we say them, and by the life we live them out. Speaking the words of redemption. Thirdly, staying with the most abandoned. Paul, in his letter to Timothy, says, "Bear your share of hardship for the gospel, like a good soldier of Christ." Mission is not a one-time campaign. It is a commitment. St. Alphonsus did not just visit the poor, he stayed with them. He founded a congregation so that Christ's mercy would never be far away from the poor. To stay means to be faithful even when it's hard, like a good soldier of Christ. When mission seems fruitless and boring, when we are misunderstood or judged, it is precisely by staying that love becomes real, that compassion slowly bears the fruit of redemption. Mga kapatid, ang pananatili ang sukatan ng pag-ibig at paglilingkod. Hindi tayo makapagmamahal ng tapat kung hindi tayo nananatili ng sapat. In today's world where ghosting or canceling out others challenges commitment and fidelity, we must be the ones to stay with the suffering, with the sinner, with the confused, with the lost, with the abandoned. Because that is what Jesus did. That is what St. Alphonsus did. The feast of St. Alphonsus invites us to see, to speak, and to stay. To reimagine preaching Christ's plentiful redemption today. And sometimes to reimagine is not to present new ideas, but to go back to the original intent of the founder. We begin by learning again from St. Alphonsus to see the world with the eyes of compassion, to speak the word of hope and truth in a world of moral confusion, and to stay committed and faithful to the mission with the most abandoned. My dear brothers and sisters, the missionary heart of Christ and of Alphonsus is not just for the Redemptorists, not just for the Alphonsian family. It is the call of every baptized Christian. In the face of today's broken world, may we not shrink in fear and despair, but burn with the fire of God's redeeming love. Let us strive to see the world with the eyes of compassion, to speak the word of redemption, and to stay with the most abandoned. May this be our hope, for this is Christ's desire for us. This is Alphonsus' example for our lives. May it be truly so. Amen.